150,000 people are ordered to flee their homes. Donald Trump blames it on gross mismanagement by local officials.
This event was the worst case scenario. It's the event that we have feared for a long time.
Losing faith. Cabinet ministers draw up secret plans for a no-deal Brexit amid fears the Prime Minister's deal will be rejected by the Commons.
Removing the macho stigma. Why the Met wants more women to train as armed officers.
The writer of Warhorse, Michael Morpurgo, looks ahead to the Armistice Centenary and tells Sarah Jane Mee why he chooses to wear both the red and white poppy.
They didn't die because they liked fighting a war. It wasn't about glory. They were fighting for our peace.
England will face New Zealand's haka today, and their captain has defended the pre-match routine. Good morning, this is Sunrise. Thank you for joining us. At least 9 people are dead, dozens are missing, and 250,000 people have been told to flee their homes. The numbers behind California's wildfires are shocking, as too are the images unfolding from the ongoing emergency.
3 fires are burning in total, the most devastating in the town of Paradise in the north of the state. All 9 of the fatalities occurred here. 2 more fires are raging in the south. The city of 1,000 Oaks, already devastated by last week's mass shooting, of course, is one of those areas affected. Its mayor says 3/4 of the city is under evacuation orders.
Also affected the nearby resort of Malibu, a favourite of many celebrities. That entire area is now under evacuation orders.
60-mile-per-hour winds that have been driving the fire have eased, but forecasters say they will strengthen again tomorrow. Sky's Greg Milam reports from Malibu.
Heavenly Father, please help us. Please help us to be safe.
For Bryn Chatfield and her family, this was the only way out. Driving through a vision of hell on the road out of the town of Paradise. Can you imagine driving for your life through this? And incredibly, all of it happening not at night, but in the middle of the day. The fire left almost nothing standing. Thousands of buildings destroyed. Within 36 hours of igniting, it was the most destructive fire in California's history. Police say many of those who were killed died in their cars trying to escape in the panic and chaos of trying to outrun the flames.
This event was the worst case scenario. It's the event that we have feared for a long time. And over the course of the years, we have worked hard to develop a plan to evacuate people in this event. That said, you need to understand that factors can exist that make even the best plans not perfect.
There was even a sighting of the phenomenon known as a firenado as the wind whipped up the flames. It is the speed with which these fires spread that takes residents and even firefighters by surprise. Hundreds of miles to the south, another fire raging, sweeping through the city of 1,000 Oaks, already shattered by a mass shooting just 48 hours earlier. It sweeps on towards the Pacific Ocean. The whole city of Malibu was ordered to head for safety.
I knocked on my roommate's door and I said, what do you think? And he said, let's get the hell out of here. And so grabbed whatever I thought I could grab and luckily made it down the street in time.
Firefighting helicopters are using every source of water they can find here, even filling up from residential swimming pools. What's driving these fires is what they call the Santa Ana winds. Usually the winds here come off the water. They are wet and cool. But when they turn, they come from the desert, down through the canyons, and they are dry and unpredictable. They come every year, and they call them the devil winds. It is at night that the scale and ferocity of these fires is most evident, even in a place well used to this as a fact of life. They are a terrifying and deadly force of nature. Greg Milam, Sky News, Malibu in California.
Well, President Trump isn't even in the US, but he has used Twitter to threaten to pull emergency aid to California. This is what he wrote. There is no reason for these massive, deadly and costly forest fires in California, except that forest management is so poor. Billions of dollars are given each year, with so many lives lost, all because of gross mismanagement of the forests. Remedy now or no more Fed payments.
Also this morning, fears that Theresa May's Brexit deal will be voted down in the House of Commons appear to be growing within her own top team. Sky News has learned that Brexiteers in the Cabinet have briefed the Prime Minister on a detailed plan for the eventuality of a no-deal scenario. That has implications for international trade deals and the Northern Ireland backstop, of course. Well, as these internal discussions rumble on, Trade Secretary Liam Fox today announces 11 investment deals to promote London as a centre of innovation. And he joins us now from central London. Mr. Fox, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. Tell us about these investment deals. What are we looking at?
Well, we're looking here at about £109 million coming in not just to London, but to London, Reading, Leeds, Newcastle, which will see further growth in jobs, over 300 jobs in this case. And it's on top of a lot of investment we've seen in recent times, particularly in fintech. And in areas like that, we have actually seen more venture capital coming into London since 2016 than the whole of Germany, France, Spain and Ireland combined, something over £5 billion worth. So it's an international vote of confidence, and it comes itself on the back of the figures from the UN published just a couple of weeks ago that showed that in terms of investment into Britain, Britain is now second only to China globally in terms of international confidence from investors.
You obviously want to be out there post-Brexit signing lots of new trade agreements, so I wonder what you make of Joe Johnson's resignation and his comments that other colleagues, and I assume that means you, are reflecting hard on the EU deal that Theresa May is going to present to you. He said it's up to you to decide what to do now. What will you do now, Mr. Fox?
Well, a deal will not be presented to us. A deal will be something that we would be part of. And of course, the government has been preparing for no agreement should that be necessary, because we've always made it very clear that there are a number of things that we must have. On the contentious issue of the so-called backstop, we've made it very clear, for example, that the whole of the United Kingdom needs to be treated the same. We went into the European community, as it was at the time, as a United Kingdom, and we will leave the European Union as a United Kingdom. And again, we've been discussing how we would have Britain remove itself, if necessary, from any backstop, because we can't be kept in what's effectively a customs union in perpetuity. So these issues still have to be resolved, and I read in the press that we're very close to a deal, and it's certainly true that 95% of what we have to agree has already been done. But there still remains a contentious number of issues that need to be resolved. And as for Joe Johnson, he's an excellent minister, but Joe was always one of those who wanted to keep Britain in the European Union. He argued to remain in the European Union during the referendum and wants another referendum now. I don't think that's the answer, because what we have to do now is to accept the democratic will of the British people and get the best agreement possible.
But as you've highlighted, there's this split. You know, the proposed withdrawal agreement described as a terrible mistake by Joe Johnson. The backstop that you've described wouldn't have a time limit. It would not have a way for the UK to withdraw it without EU agreement. That leaves your job redundant. You've got these two camps now that the Prime Minister cannot please, can she, really?
Well, the Prime Minister has been extraordinarily patient and resilient throughout this process. It's a very difficult process, of course, to get the withdrawal agreement. We haven't even started to talk about the details of the future trade relationship with Europe. What we're seeing is a difficult end negotiation, where the European Union thinks it's giving too much away, and we think that we're not getting enough to guarantee Britain's independence in the process.
Yeah, exactly. So if this deal that's presented has the backstop to the backstop that has no time limit on it and no way for the UK to end that arrangement, you agree that that means that you'd be bound by EU rules and you wouldn't be able to do the job that you want to do?
Well, in that case, we may not be able to reach an agreement with the European Union.
And therefore, would you resign?
Imposed upon the UK.
Would you resign then?
Well,
because if that's the arrangement where the whole of the UK is kept aligned to EU rules, you wouldn't be able to strike trade deals around the world. You would resign?
Well, I'm not going to play this media game of who's going to resign when.
But
we're in the middle of a very complex
this is coming down the road very quickly, and you must have thought about what your decision is going to be if the backstop means that we're signed up to EU rules.
Well, if I have these thoughts and conversations, I'm certainly not going to have them live on the media. And I would talk to the Prime Minister and I would talk to my colleagues. We're in the middle of a difficult part of the negotiation. There are clearly those who want to force another referendum on the British people, who've made their views very clear. And, you know, we're not going to be pressured into that. We've got a mandate to leave the European Union. It's an instruction from the voters. We have to get the best deal possible. There are difficulties in getting this withdrawal agreement. We understand what those are, and we're working our way through them. We may or may not be able to get that agreement, in which case we would have to leave the European Union without one. But we're not going to be bounced into having another referendum so that those who lost the previous one can try to apply continued membership of the European Union to the people of Britain in perpetuity.
Can I ask specifically about this detailed plan for a no-deal Brexit that we believe has been presented to Cabinet Ministers? We think it would see the UK pay £18 billion, continue to follow EU rules for 18 to 24 months with no deal, effectively as a third-party option. What do you think of that? It was received well?
There are a range of options. I've not seen the specific one that you refer to. The government's been making general plans for a no-deal Brexit for some time, if that's what we have to do.
Something that you would support, though, even though you haven't seen it, if I tell you it would see the UK pay £18 billion and continue to follow EU rules?
Well, again, it won't surprise you to know that I'm really not going to be involved in discussions on what I'm told on the media. I'll want to see all of these things myself. I'll want to see all the details and all the legal advice that goes with it. So, with all due respect, I don't think you're quite able to provide me with that on the air.
OK, Lister Fox, thank you for taking the time to speak to us this morning. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure, thanks.
Now, as you may have seen, Sky News is campaigning for an independent commission for leaders' debates at general elections.
More than 58,000 people have signed it so far. When it reaches 100,000, the government will have to respond. To help it get there, you can sign the petition by going to skynews.com/make-debates-happen.
President Trump is in Paris to attend Armistice Day commemorations, but as soon as he arrived last night, the president caused controversy by criticising his French hosts.
Our Europe correspondent Mark Stone is in Paris for us this morning. Not the best timing, Mark. What is President Trump trying to do here with this tweet?
Yeah, good morning, Tom, from the courtyard of the Elysee Palace. President Trump certainly not brought the weather with him. It's miserable here, but he did bring some of his trademark grenade tweets. He was tweeting most of the flight over, it seems, and all the tweets were referencing the midterm elections, which, being no doubt, European leaders would have been watching, not least because they've been wondering, as many people have, whether President Trump has got the prospect of a second term. And it looks as though, given the result of the midterm elections, he did not do too badly. The prospect of a second Donald Trump term is there, and so they all know, President Macron included, that they need to deal with this man for quite some time to come. And so it is with that backdrop that President Trump tweeted, just as he landed, rather an insult, some might say, to his host, President Macron. He said, President Macron of France has just suggested that Europe build its own military in order to protect itself from the US, China and Russia. Very insulting, so said the US president. But perhaps Europe should first pay its fair share of NATO, which the US subsidises greatly. What President Trump was referring to there was a radio interview which Mr. Macron had given a few days ago, in which he talked about, as EU leaders often do, the prospect of an EU army. Of course, something Britain is against, but Britain's leaving the European Union. Mr. Macron thinks that it would in time be a good idea, yes, to protect against the instability or the unpredictability of China and of Russia, but also, so said Mr. Macron, perhaps the United States. When you read the detail or listen to the detail of what he said, what he was actually saying is that the United States cannot be relied on under the presidency of Donald Trump in the way that it could be but prior to that, and that is why the EU needs to be able to defend itself and not rely on the United States. Nevertheless, not a particularly diplomatic tweet from President Trump just as his plane touched down. He spent the night, we think, at the US Embassy here in Paris, and shortly, within the next hour or so, he'll be arriving here at the courtyard where he will be met by Mr. Macron. The two men will then hold bilateral talks. Of course, defence will come up, but also you can bet that trade will come up. The EU and the United States are currently embroiled in what is effectively now a full-blown or going towards a full-blown trade war. They will discuss that. Mr. Trump is one of about 80 world leaders that will be here over the course of the next few days. Ostensibly, this is all about remembering 100 years since the end of World War I, since the Armistice was signed in a railway carriage not all that far from here in November 1918. Yes, it is about remembrance. Yes, it's about history. But Mr. Macron's making quite clear he's worried about the stability of the world today. That's why he's called leaders, including Mr. Macron, Mr. Trump, Mr. Putin, Angela Merkel too, and many others, all together to talk about the future and reflect on the past.
Mark, thank you.
100 years ago tomorrow, what became known as the Great War came to an end. In the years since, marking Armistice Day, November the 11th has become a tradition. But how was the end of the First World War viewed at the time?
Rita Gresty is an organiser of the second largest Remembrance Day parade in London, along with her husband Vyan. They have an original newspaper article from Armistice Day in 1918. They brought it with them. I'm going to be very, very careful with it and present it to you here. Welcome to both of you. Vyan, just tell us how you came to have this in your possession.
Well, a very good friend of mine, who's actually my youngest son AJ's godfather, his father was born in 1868, and he wasn't born until his father was 70 and over.
Wow.
But when he died, the house had to be cleared out, and the newspaper was found under the lino and above the floorboards. Wow. Because in those days, you laid your floorboards, then you put newspaper down,
wow,
and then lino over the top of it.
So it was never supposed to be kept as a memento, it was just lining something?
To my knowledge, no.
And amazing, you know, again, if we can show it on 4 here, the headline of "Is the war is over? Armistice signed at 5 a.m. today. Hostilities cease on all fronts 6 hours later." This is an incredible piece of history that you've got here. Rita, tell us a little bit about the work that you do and obviously the parade.
Right, yes, well, I organise Harrow's Remembrance Parade and service, and we're told by the former borough commander that it is now the second largest in London. And although obviously other boroughs and all nationwide, they all hold their individual parade ceremonies, but ours has just grown amazingly. And we're expecting about 700 marching. Because it's the Armistice Centenary, we've extended it for people to come along and join if they have medals or if they're ex-service people. Come along to Harrow precinct, basically. It's 9:15, join the parade, and they'll be marching down Station Road onto the parade ground.
And you've managed to, well, part of the significance of tomorrow is getting children involved,
yes,
isn't it?
That's right, yes. So about 10 years ago, the leader decided it was a good idea to get children thinking about Remembrance Day. And so he thought it would be a good idea to start this schools competition. So we trialled it and it worked really well. So we invite, start of September, out to the schools. We're asking them to take part, you know, submit poems. So all the schools over Harrow, the classes are thinking about, as they're writing their own poem, they're actually thinking about the significance at that time.
That's so important, isn't it, to get those younger generations involved?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I was just to finish, Vyan, how important do you think it is, 100 years on, to keep that memory alive? Of course, you know, we don't have, as one of our guests was saying earlier this morning, we don't have the oral retelling now from people who are
yes,
there.
and because I was brought up and told that my generation was the first that had never been to war. And when you think about it, it was. You know, for the 100, 200, 300 years before, the country was at war with someone. And so I think now, I mean, I served very insignificantly as the cushiest job in the British Army, without any doubt. I was the pianist in the mounted band of the Lifeguards.
Wow.
Now, it didn't actually get too much work, but colleagues and friends of mine, yes, they were killed and in the various battles that have come since then. And it's very interesting in Harrow, as I teach in Harrow, that the youngsters are very aware of 1418, possibly more than 3945.
Quite surprising.
So the awareness is there. That's good. Yeah.
And of course it's set on GCSE and A-level syllabuses.
Yeah. Listen, thank you so much for bringing this in as well. I'm glad I haven't done anything to it. Rita, Vyan, thank you for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Okay,
thank you.
Thanks.
Still to come here on Sky News, we've got a sport update, action from the FA Cup first round. There's good news for Raheem Sterling as well, ahead of Sunday's Manchester derby.
And British boxer Tony Bellew gets spied on by his Ukrainian opponent ahead of tonight's fight.
They shall grow not old.
Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous.
Come accade a noi che rimaniamo.
Возраст не утомит их, а годы
पीछे रह जाते हैं उम्र उन्हें हरा नहीं पाएगी
wird sie nicht ermatten. Quand viendra l'heure du crépuscule. At the going down of the sun.
And in the morning,
sie mit den Jahren dahin gerafft.
noi li ricorderemo.
We will remember them.
New Olay Whips. Powerful skincare, now light as air. A breakthrough moisturiser, delightfully whipped for instant absorption. Feel a light as air finish in a flash. New Olay Whips.
You want to keep your savings for the things you love, not a new boiler. We're with you. That's why with British Gas, you could get 2 years interest-free credit on all our new boilers. So you can spread the cost with regular monthly payments and keep doing the things you love. Plus you get expert installation and peace of mind with our 5-year warranty. Thanks. Search British Gas New Boiler.
Our players are what make Tombola Britain's biggest bingo site. That and unique games, like blocks and Bingo 60. And of course, there's the community.
I like the family sense of Tombola. You know people, you get to know people on there. It's a great big family and it's a lot of fun to play.
Come join the fun at Tombola.
Find your escape.
Find yourself.
Trailfinders will find you a great value holiday.
Right now in Yemen, nearly 10 million children are in danger. 4 years of conflict is taking its toll, and now, as fighting continues, children are facing the devastating consequences. Many children are so severely malnourished that without food, water, and basic health care, they will die. Just £3 a month could help buy life-saving food to feed a child for a week. That's why I am asking you to text FOOD to 70133 right now. I've seen for myself the incredible impact your donations have. UNICEF is already delivering life-saving food and supplies to desperately hungry children, but resources are running dangerously low. No child should die because they don't have enough food to eat. So please don't wait. Text FOOD to 70133 now to give £3 a month to help save a child's life today.
Temperatures across the globe are rising.
Theresa May
Boris Johnson's the
Prince
Harry
in the Duchess. This could be the end of the world.
as we know it.
What a pile of absolute... Boris, he's being urged to explain his blunder in Farsi. He's done enough damage speaking English.
Who is Vladimir Putin?
They are meant to be dealing with Brexit.
Brand new The Russell Howard Hour, Thursday at 10 on Sky One.
Let's get an update on the sport now with Natalie.
This programme is brought to you by Vitality Health and Life Insurance. Getting active brings its own rewards.
Just throw it a bit lower, then you wouldn't have to jump.
Good morning. The road to Wembley begins for 58 teams today with the FA Cup first round, but the dream is already over for non-league side Harringay Borough. League One club Wimbledon are 4 divisions above them, but Harringay did keep them at bay until the last minute in their tie last night. Mitchell Pinnock scored to make Wimbledon the first team into the second round. Sheffield United missed the chance to go top of the Championship after the Steel City derby ended in a goalless draw. United had a penalty in the first half after Mark Duffy was fouled, but David McGoldrick's spot kick was saved. United now level on points with league leaders Leeds United, but behind on goal difference. Aberdeen are now within 5 points of the Scottish Premiership summit after a 1-0 win over Hibernian. Gary Mackay-Stevens seized on a mix-up in the Hibs defence to score the winner in the first half. It takes Aberdeen level on 21 points with third-place Rangers. Premier League leaders Manchester City have announced a new 5-year contract for Raheem Sterling ahead of tomorrow's derby against Manchester United. The new deal comes in a week when the England international faced criticism after he won a penalty in the Champions League after appearing to trip himself up.
He's an incredible nice guy. He's incredible love for the locker room, and he do absolutely everything on the pitch. And he make a mistake because he's 23 years old, so. He maybe goes so fast, so quick. When made the chipping is, he has to, do it slower.
Well, Paul Pogba is a doubt for Manchester United ahead of the derby. He missed training yesterday with what's been described as a little injury. Thousands of Leicester fans will pay tribute to club owner Vichai Srivadhanaprabha today. They will take part in a march from the city centre to the King Power Stadium before today's game against Burnley. It's the first match at the ground since the helicopter crash. Cardiff kicked today's Premier League games off at lunchtime against Brighton, live on Sky Sports. Huddersfield host West Ham, Newcastle play Bournemouth, and Southampton face Watford in the 3 p.m. kickoffs. Tottenham are at Crystal Palace tonight. Lewis Hamilton may have already won the F1 World Championship, but there's still plenty at stake this season. The Mercedes team can win the Constructors' title at this weekend's Brazilian Grand Prix if they get 12 points more than Ferrari. They dominated second practice. Hamilton was just a fraction slower than his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Qualifying takes place later today. England will face New Zealand's famous haka at their autumn international clash today at Twickenham. Head coach Eddie Jones stoked the flames when he said the Spice Girls could be playing during the All Blacks pre-match ritual, and it wouldn't make any difference to him.
Hey, look, we do the haka as a challenge, but it's also more about us connecting as a team. The opposition can do what they like, and for us, we'll respect what they do, and hopefully the haka shows respect as well. So we'll just see what happens.
England women were also in action last night against the USA. Katie Daly-McLean starred on her 100th appearance for the Red Roses in a comprehensive 57 points to 5 win. She scored this try, as well as converting 6 others at Allianz Park. 5-time world snooker champion Ronnie O'Sullivan is into the final of the Champion of Champions. The world number 3, beaten finalist in the last 2 years at this event, beat defending champion Sean Murphy 6-3 in Coventry. On Sunday, he'll play Mark Allen or Kieran Wilson in the final. England women's cricketers begin their World 2020 campaign today against Sri Lanka. Favourites Australia opened their tournament with a 52-run win over Pakistan in Guyana last night. Hosts and defending champions West Indies also beat Bangladesh. British boxer Tony Bellew is promising one of the greatest fights of all time tonight. He takes on Alexander Usyk tonight in Manchester as he challenges to become the undisputed world cruiserweight champion.
I'm going to shock the odds once again, and I'm going to surprise the whole world of boxing. Only person who beats me is me. I will be crowned the king of the world.
Well, Usyk showed his funny side after yesterday's weigh-in. He was caught spying on his opponent during an interview. On Saturday Sport at 11:30, we're building up to England-New Zealand at Twickenham, and we're back here very soon.
Yeah, I'd lend you my nice warm coat, but no, what am I saying? I wouldn't.
Right, a strange situation in November. Everyone in the studio has said how freezing it is in here because of the air conditioning. And it's actually warmer outside, even though it's the end of the year. Isabel?
Yeah, you know what? Southwesterly winds, relatively mild air across us this weekend. But next week, my goodness, southerly wind and a lot of fine weather, particularly from about sort of Tuesday, Wednesday onwards. Some lovely autumn weather to come. But let's take a look at what we have today.
Beneath pink skies by the Taj Mahal, or as the sun sets in the City of Angels.
So high pressure will take control through the week ahead, but for now, well, low pressure definitely dominant. It's throwing in showers already across Southern Ireland and southwest Britain with some thunderstorms coming in and really quite lively downpours.